first live video. This is exciting. Well, we'll see how this goes. I'm going to be doing a couple of streams here at the same time. I'm kind of wanting to see which stream is going to be more effective, if there's going to be one where people that watch this watch more of it, if it would be, oh, well, Facebook already has given me a ding that it is not, connection's not as good. So I'm streaming through YouTube here and Facebook Live here. I'm kind of wanting to experiment a little bit with the streaming thing, partially just because editing for me takes a lot of work, and I'm not super awesome at it. And my guy that did most of my editing is not around. So I'm trying this stream thing to see. Today, I've got a user question. So a viewer question that thought I would try the stream instead of the whole video thing, just to see if that could be a better way of doing this and maybe streamline this a little bit. So, I'm really excited about. I started this whole thing in the first place. What I really wanted to do with this, as a counselor, I really wanted to be able to answer questions for people. It's kind of a weird deal for me. I sit in my office all day and people come in all the time and pay me to know what I have to say about stuff. And then I come on to this whole multimedia YouTube thing, and it's, I can't give it away. So, but I would like to be able to be helpful to my viewers, anybody that's watching. I'd like to be able to answer questions for people. So if you have any questions, you are always welcome to send them to me. Think of it as an ongoing AMA thread where you can always ask me any questions you have. As a licensed clinical professional counselor with about a decade of experience, I'm happy to just throw out whatever I know and be helpful any way I can. So, but why don't we jump into today's question? It comes from Rudy from Kako. Asks, serious child psychology question. If a kid's brain doesn't become logical until 6, 10, 18, at what age should you begin to punish for wrong behavior? Rudy from Kako. So I'm talking to my wife a lot about this one. Katie, if you're watching, I've super valued your input on it. Katie has been invaluable in helping me through this. I feel like this is something that's not just, I'm not just drawing from my background in psychology, but I've really needed to lean on my own experiences as a dad. I've got 3 little ones. And boy, punishment is a tricky thing. So thank you for your question, Rudy. You're not the only one wondering that. As dads, it can be really hard to know what do we do with punishment. How do we be helpful to our kids? I think that there's a lot of pressure we want to help them get it right, and so we don't want to punish just for the sake of punishment, of course. But it can be hard to know what to do if we're not going to do that. Like, punishment feels like a pretty powerful tool in our toolbox, in our belt, for like how to be helpful to our kids. So here's the good news and the bad news, right? The good news, maybe we start with the bad news. The bad news about punishment is that as a way of changing the ways that our kids behave, it's super, super ineffective. Punishment as a conditioning reinforcement tool is one of the least effective tools in our toolbox, period. It's really tough to be able to take a kid's behavior, see something that we don't like, be aggressive, be mean, be hurtful to that behavior, like try to hurt that behavior enough to make it stop, and then have it positively change the kid's life. It's just really tough to do. If you study like classical conditioning, like the ways that we learn, the ways that we change each other's behaviors, it's the least effective reinforcement schedule possible that there is. It just doesn't do very much. The thing that it does do, though, that I discovered about myself, that's been a hard thing to learn, that I kind of have felt pretty not awesome about, and discovering about myself, is that punishment as a means of parenting our kids punishment is usually more about our own emotions than it is about helping our kids. Hi, Yulia. It's good to see you. Talking about kids, I have 3 kids now, if you can believe it. I know you have some too. Crazy. I got a question from a viewer about like when should we start punishing our kids, and so yeah, it ends up being more about me than about them. Often, a lot of times, I realize that when I'm punishing my kids, I'm doing it to get my own emotion out. One of the things that my wife Katie was helpful in helping me to talk through, parenting as an exercise is typically kind of like an ongoing exercise in powerlessness. It feels like a lot of futility. It feels like there's so many things that we want to change. There's so many things that we want to be helpful with. That and if it's not just parenting, it's teaching. It's being there for the littles in our life. And as an adult, we want to be able to make changes for them. We want to be able to affect their behaviors. We want to be able to be helpful, to help shape them and help mold them. And punishment feels like a really compelling go-to to make that happen. But again, it's really super ineffective. But 2, usually it's about that powerlessness. It's about you're doing this thing and I got this emotional response to it. It makes me feel something. It makes me feel powerless. It makes me feel pissed. It makes me feel upset. I feel like it makes me feel afraid. A lot of times my kids' misbehavior, when my kids aren't doing what they're supposed to do, something in me freaks out about, like, am I being a bad dad? Is my kid going to turn into like borderline personality kid when she turns in, if she's doing this as an adult, if my boy is still doing this thing when he's a grown up, is this on me to fix this? And so I'll often punish to try to make that thing go away. But really the thing I'm trying to make go away is the feeling inside of myself, right? So often punishment is a venting of emotion, a venting of the powerlessness that we feel as parents onto our kid in hopes of making not only that feeling go away. Hi, Kelly. Oh, hi, Leanna. I'm talking about kids. I'm talking about parenting. I got a question from a viewer about when is an okay time to start punishing your kids? If they're not really logical, at what point is their brain like ready to receive redirection that way? Hi, Kelly. So the first thing that we talked about, for those of you who've been watching, sorry to rehash, but the first thing we talked about, and I'm doing this on YouTube and on Facebook, so I'm seeing which has got. So far, Facebook is dominating YouTube in involvement. So pick your favorite platform. But anyway, so punishment, first of all, super effective. It doesn't really do very much. Most kids don't respond to it in a way that helps them to learn, helps them to grow. Punishment is the least effective way of changing a person's behavior, bar none. I mean, doesn't do very much. But the second thing is mostly, we do it mostly for ourselves. We do it mostly to feel better about the powerlessness of being a parent, to vent the anger, to vent the fear, to vent the sense of futility sometimes when we look at our kids and we look at their behaviors and we're scared that they're going to turn into what we're seeing. And so we really try. Thanks, Leanna. That's awesome. I really appreciate that. So we end up trying instead we punish to make those feelings go away inside of ourselves as much as we're trying to change our kids' behavior. So for me, when I saw that I was punishing my kids a lot because I was feeling overwhelmed, because I wasn't feeling good, and then as I'm learning about how it just doesn't do very much, it's not very effective, that really helped me to say, okay, I might need to reframe how I understand punishment. Especially for the little ones. Okay, so when you got a kid, like 18 months old, 2 years old, or younger, they really don't have a sense of positive and negative with stuff very well. Like they don't, positive attention or negative attention is really difficult for them to differentiate. Positive energy in an experience or negative energy in an experience they don't differentiate that very well. So a lot of times they just go with what's powerful. It's about intensity more than it is about good, intensely good or intensely bad. So, okay. Quick self-disclosure, Junebug, for those of you who know my sweet little Junebug, she is just a wonderful kid. We love her to death. She's just really great. But a couple months ago, she was like 2.5. She just got this thing where she just started, like, she was really, really tired. She had not had good naps for a while. I think there was something else going on, like she had been sick or she'd been taking antibiotics or something. Anyway, so we're just hanging out as a family. People are watching shows, kind of vegging out before bed. And she just gets in her head to just start walking around hitting people. And she just is just like bang, bang, bang. And you can't get her to stop. We're trying to like, whoa, what are you doing? This is not like her. But she just got this like robotic, like crazed look where her head was just gone. And she just walk up to people and just wanting to hit them. And so at that point, we have the potential, like we have the option of, or it would feel normal the way I was raised, or what felt like, I kind of felt like maybe I should punish this kid for this. Like you have to go to timeout, or you're going to get a spanking. Or we don't really spank our kids, but my head is spinning. Like, how do I make this kid stop? So when I'm thinking clearly, I can think about, okay, so if I at that point make a really big deal of that, what I do is if I try to punish that out, I energize that experience. I just like fill it with stuff, with energy, with intensity. I make that into, I just make it a really big deal. And so this punching her siblings and punching her parents thing turns into a really big deal, which part of it is because she's our third kid and we know this now from experience. But eventually you learn and you realize, like, she's going to move on. She's not going to do this for very much longer. And if we just kind of like keep redirecting her and just kind of like, okay, let's move over here. Like, okay, I'm going to pick her up and move her away from her sibling that she's hitting and stuff. Eventually that stuff just kind of goes away. When it sticks is when we make a really, really big deal out of it. And we make this the hill that we're going to die on. You cannot hit your sister. You cannot hit your brother. And if you do, and especially if we like spank our kids in those moments, that now all of a sudden this moment has just become supercharged. And this thing that is just kind of like a passing thing in the night that will just sort of fade and go, becomes this really big deal that she returns to, and she returned to a lot. So when I told my other kids and what my wife and I talked about is like, hey, the way we handle this right now is going to determine if this is one of those things that Junebug does for like an hour on a Thursday, or if this is something that Junebug does for the next 6 months. If this becomes a really big deal that she just can't seem to stop doing and does all the time. So we just kind of just like try to kind of ignore it, or just redirect her, or just kind of like pick her up and move her away from the situation and just ride it out. And she never did it again. It was never a big deal. She stopped doing it when she fell asleep. She didn't wake up hitting. It was gone. It was not a big deal. So for us, if I look back on my old way of doing things, I think I run a really strong risk of punishing in that place, because I'm upset with, like, I can't have a kid like this. I can't have her doing this in Sunday school. I can't have her doing this with my siblings, with their cousins, or with anybody. She can't do this. This is a big deal. I have to stop this right now. And if I get in that energy and I start doing that to her, then I make it a whole lot more likely that she's just going to keep doing the thing. So at what age is punishment appropriate? Well, kids need limits, right? Kids need to know that there are certain things that are inappropriate, things that aren't okay. I wouldn't recommend it at all for like our little toddlers, right? Like the best thing for a toddler when they're doing something that's not good for them, or that you don't want them to do, the best thing for a toddler is to just redirect. Just get them doing something else. Move their attention, distract them, move them to something else. And don't make a really big deal of something in a way that's going to stick and that's going to like break up, like that's going to make this experience into something else. So at what age is that appropriate to actually set the limits? Well, whatever you do, whatever age you decide to do, make sure that you're setting the limits based on what's actually helpful for your kid, to help your kid understand that they can't do this, to protect them from an experience, whatever age that is. Instead of, and keep an eye on your own emotions so for Rudy's question about what age is appropriate, what I would say is, dude, first, before you do any of that about when to do this record, look into what is this for you? Where's this energy for the punishment for your kid coming from? Are you scared? Are you scared of what your kid might turn into? Be careful with that. Are you angry? Are you feeling powerless? Punishment is not a way to recalibrate rebalance those scales. Like if you're in a power struggle with your kid, that's the problem, not your kid's behavior. The problem that's going to be way bigger is what your kid is learning about, power and learning about autonomy and stuff, and the way that we treat each other. That's the other thing, Katie. This is a really important point Katie had too. When your kid is misbehaving, right, and they're doing stuff that you don't feel good about and you don't want them to do, you're clearly, they're doing something you don't like. And the way that you handle it, what you're really doing more than changing that behavior in your kid, what you're really doing is you're teaching your kid how to handle things they don't like. So if that means get big and get loud and get scary and hurt people or hurt them because you don't like it, what they learn from that experience is less about like, oh, don't hit my sister. It's more about, if I don't like the way things are going, I can get big, loud, scary, and hurtful. So whatever age you decide to like set limits and set boundaries with some consequences, be careful about that, about why you would be doing that, and just pay attention to it instead of like, what do I really want my kid to learn? So instead, modeling things like mindfulness, being aware of our emotions, being attuned to like, what's going on in you right now, exploration, curiosity. What I would recommend, if your kid is misbehaving, I would recommend first going towards curiosity before you go towards punishment. Get curious about what's going on with my kid. There's probably something. Kid probably hadn't eaten in a while. Maybe they haven't gotten good sleep. Maybe they've got big emotions and they don't know what to do with them. Get curious about that and explore those things. Listen about those things before you go into like, this behavior is not okay, and I'm going to make it hurt that you did this so you don't do this again, which almost never works. I mean, it just does. That's just not the way that people change. It just doesn't really help. So instead, get curious about it. Listen to your kid. Talk to your kid. And I know that probably, if my parents are watching this, hi mom, that probably is just like, oh my word, your kid's going to turn into a spoiled, entitled brat. And I don't mean that. You got to have limits, of course. There are things that are just simply not okay. But how you handle that, and if punishment is your only go-to tool in that, you end up raising a kid that handles their problems with just like, I'm going to punish them. I'm going to get bigger. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to get nastier. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. So instead, let's teach our kids, like when our kids are misbehaving, the types of stuff that I would have been punished for. Like I remember being, oh shoot, man, I hope I can talk about this without like feeling it. I remember when I was probably about 5 years old in Manhattan, Kansas, 6 kids around a dinner table, a lot of noise, a lot of stuff. And I don't remember what was going on, but for some reason I like compulsively had the bottom of my butter knife had a little ball on it, and I was banging it on the table, and I was scuffing the table up. And I remember my dad setting limits. I love you, Dad, and I don't blame you for this, but my dad setting a limit and saying, you can't do that. And I wasn't like pissed. I wasn't trying to be bad. I wasn't trying to be a bad kid, but like I started doing it again. And I can remember just kind of feeling like it was like a compulsive thing that was happening before I even chose to do it. And I remember my dad standing up, that's it, takes me upstairs, sits me in a room, leaves me in that room for a bit, because my dad was really good about, if he ever spanked me, he didn't spank me pissed. He didn't like come running. He left me in that room in the dark knowing I'm about to get spanked for a while until he can come up and very calmly spank me for it. And I remember that experience being really a powerful one for me. It was really hurtful, and I didn't learn anything about the knife on the table. I didn't learn anything about, it didn't have anything to do with that behavior whatsoever for me. And really what it felt like more in hindsight, if I could project myself in what's going on with my dad, is that my dad was pretty overwhelmed with a lot of loud kids and feeling like these kids don't do what I tell them to do. And when I tell my 5-year-old, don't hit the table with the knife, he better do it. And if he doesn't do it, I'm going to be pissed, and I'm going to let him know. And I think he did. And I think that, honestly, I think that was more about my dad's stuff than it was about mine. So instead, when we got the energy for it, when we can manage it, listening to our kids, getting curious, redirecting when we need to, and using punishment as a last resort of just basically like, you can't do that. And if that's a problem, we're going to set limits to limit it. So Rudy's question, at what age is that appropriate? I don't know that it's ever super effective, but it's never appropriate as a means of venting your own emotion. And if you ever do if you do want to lean on punishment, just make sure that you're doing it in a way that's really mindful. But it'd be way more effective to get curious. So anyway, that's answer to Rudy. I like I said before, one of my goals in starting this whole channel is I really want to be helpful to people in ways that I can, any way I can. I started this whole thing off with, I'm in my office all day and people coming and they're giving me money to tell them stuff, but I can't give it away on YouTube. Somehow it's difficult to sync that up. But if anyone watching this, anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to apply whatever experience or whatever training or whatever that I have to try to be helpful to you too. That's really what the point of this whole thing is about, is trying to find other ways to be helpful to people. So that includes you. So anything I can do to be helpful to you, please don't hesitate to let me know. You can connect with Deep Space however you do that to do any of that. So this has kind of been fun to do, like a little live stream thing. So far it looks like Facebook beat YouTube in more people watching. So we'll see where that goes after this. If you have any questions, if I end up doing more streams, you can let me know, and I can maybe talk about anything that you would like to hear me talk about. So I'm happy to do that. Awesome, Yulia. That's really great. I love that. If you have any more questions for me, Yulia, or anybody else, please don't hesitate to ask. It's really good to see you in this way. So all of you. It's been a pleasure. Anytime that I can be helpful, please don't hesitate to let me know. And this has been fun. So maybe we'll do it again. We'll see. But yeah, it's been cool hanging out with you guys. YouTube too, Facebook, wherever we see each other, we'll see each other again. All right. That's it. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.